All right, question. As I've spent more time studying, playing with HEMA, comparing it to other forms of swordsmanship, I start to think about this. What should I have in my other hand? Should I have a buckler? Should I have a dagger? Or should I improvise? All right, without getting a big recap going here, I've spoken in other videos about my martial arts history and the martial arts that I've practiced and still appreciate to this day, at least pragmatic flavors of them. And one of the arts I've talked about was Bagua Zhang, which is a very traditional, in many ways very ritualized internal, which means more metaphysical than physical, Chinese style. But I still practice it because I do appreciate, respect, and employ certain pragmatic aspects of the art. Now, there is one weapon out of many that's kind of semi-unique to Bagua, and that would be these. And they're known by a couple of different names. The most common one, Lu Jiao Dao, which roughly translates as deer hook or deer horn swords or knives. They're also called Mandarin duck axes or sun moon Mandarin duck axes because, well, there's a yin and yang application and also the concept that Mandarin ducks come in pairs and they're considered to be inseparable. Anyway, deer horns is probably the more common name for these. However, what was available to me when I started training Bagua and really got fascinated with the application of these particular weapons, there really wasn't much out there. You could get some cheap aluminum versions or some really badly steel stamp versions. They had no edges, no points, usually just some ribbon or something wrapped around where the grip should be. Not very good. So what I did instead to make do for a while is I had a pair of what are known as tiger hook swords, which are much longer and, shall we say, much more challenging to use. I'll post a picture of what those tend to look like. But what I did was I cut a pair of those down to look very much like if you've seen Big Trouble in Little China and you remember the Immortals, specifically Thunder. There's kind of a modified version of these that he uses, which is basically a set of hook swords cut down. So this is pretty much what I had. I'll post a picture of that. Now, 25 years, I had never been able to find a decent pair of these, and, well, that made me sad. Until, by lucky happenstance, I was watching, I think it was one of Scalagrim's videos, and he was reviewing another product from Devil's Edge at Kult of Athena is where they're available. And in the background of that shot was like a catalog page picture, and just barely visible among all those other products. So I clicked right over there, and lo and behold, for about $170 you can get a good pair of these, and I snapped them up immediately. Now what did I get for the money before I talk about how they're used? Well, 1095 steel with a pretty good temper. Now, zooming in a little bit here, the edges are not fantastic. I mean, there's a very strong secondary bevel. The other thing I've noticed is in some of the grinds, they're not perfectly even, especially in some of the more acute corners, but I really can't complain because they are solid and hardy and, yes, sharp. Also, unlike those cheap ones with the little thin ribbon around the handle, these have some nice solid wooden scales. Now, as for the proportions, some versions of this, the top blade and the bottom blade are the same length. I kind of prefer the slightly lopsided version that favors the top blade, so that's just my personal preference. So basically, for a pretty reasonable price, I'm really happy with what I got. Now, how are these employed? Now, there are specific forms for the use of these, but I found, like many other kinds of weapons, for instance, Kobudo weapons in karate, you can apply these to empty-handed forms as well because they pretty much move as extensions of your hands. So you'll find that they are quite useful. However, obviously with all the sharp points, you have to be a lot more careful and aware of where your hands are, which can certainly be very good for your practice. However, let's take a look at these close up. What kind of danger are we talking about in terms of application? Okay, so all edges, put one of these down, all edges are sharp. Here, across here, up here, down this side and this side, except for basically, well, the inside of the guard and the backs of these points. All the other edges are sharp, which means you can use these in many different kinds of striking applications. You can hit, for instance, with the very bottom of these things. You can punch straight forward with these or stab with the tips. You can hit with this side of it. You can also come down with slashing cuts, almost like a karambit. If you're thinking about a karambit, it's almost like you have a karambit sticking out either side of your hand to slash with. Now, the hooking aspects of this also allows you to potentially control an opponent's weapon while you strike or slash or cut with the other hand. That makes these very, very useful for close quarters fighting and theoretically very useful for being able to control a longer weapon and allow you to close in on it. So, yeah, the things that you can do with these are almost, well, limitless, applying them to, well, however you fight. Is it more of a fencing style, more of a straight line style, more of a circular style like is used in Bagua Deer, where you've got a lot more flow involved? You know, what are you doing with these things? But yeah, there's just something particularly appealing. And as you saw in the intro, it's always been traditional to use two of these together, like certain other paired weapons. But I'm starting to wonder, well, what if I stuck something else in one hand? Would this, as the secondary parrying weapon, enhance my ability to use something like, I don't know, a sword? Might be worth looking into. But, like many other weapons on the market today, 2020, post-2020, yeah, they're sold out, but at least they're still on the website. So hopefully they'll come back. And if you're interested in traditional Chinese martial arts and some of their very unique weapons, I have to say, well, far and away, these are the best deer horn, deer hook swords I've ever seen, barring some really expensive custom pieces. But even compared to some of those custom pieces, yeah, these are really nice. Cost me, well, with tax and shipping, $200 and change. And again, got them from Kult of Athena, highly trusted company. So, yeah. So you may see these come up in some other videos. Hopefully again, my camera is not really designed for action shots. Hopefully that wasn't completely blurry. But yeah, let's start a discussion. If you're curious about these, familiar with them, have used them, the similar tiger hooks, yeah, interesting possibilities. But as always, hope you found this interesting, entertaining, enjoyable, informative. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you again.